Hello, my name is Emma. I am an English teacher. I also have a master's degree in learning languages. Today, I wanted to talk about 10 common myths people have about learning languages. So, first of all, what is a myth? A myth is something people believe might be real or true, but in fact, it's not true. So we're going to look at 10 common myths about learning languages people have. The first myth is you have to be young to learn a language successfully. Many people think only children can truly learn a language. Now, I've been an English teacher for many, many years. I have had students who were 60 years old, 70 years old, 80 years old, and even one person who was 90 years old. And what I can tell you is that it is possible for adults to successfully learn a language. Children learn languages more easily. So, for example, accents. It's easier for children to hear sounds in a language. They can pick up an accent easier than an adult can in general. But adults can learn a language well with consistent practice. Practice makes perfect. I think the hardest thing for many adults is finding the time to learn a language. If they practice enough and they have a good method for learning a language, adults can learn languages successfully. So now let's look at the second myth many people have when it comes to learning languages. If you are learning a language, you must live abroad to learn that language. So you must live in an English-speaking country in order to learn English and to become fluent. So this is not true. It's a myth. You can learn a language in your own country as well. You might need to be more creative to find opportunities to practice, but it's possible to learn a language in your own country. I'm right now doing that with Mandarin. I'm learning how to read and write Mandarin in my own country, Canada, and I've learned a lot. The nice thing about nowadays is that there are so many online resources. There's so many materials. There's things you can read, watch, practice on. So because of the internet, it has become a lot easier to learn a language without traveling. So this is a myth. The third myth is if you're making a lot of mistakes in a language, you're not good at it. So for people learning English, they make lots of mistakes. They feel very bad and they say, oh, my English is so terrible. This is a myth. Mistakes are how we learn. It's very important in the learning process that you make mistakes. It's also good to remember native speakers of a language make mistakes all the time. They make grammar mistakes, pronunciation mistakes, vocabulary mistakes. So mistakes are common. The key is when you make a mistake, you learn from it. As long as you are looking for the mistakes you make, and then you figure out the correct way of doing things and you learn from it, then you're doing the right thing. So this is a myth. It's important to make mistakes when you're learning a language. It's a part of the process. The next myth is that you need to memorize a lot of grammar rules first. So your first step to learning a language is learn the grammar. So this is a myth. Grammar is important, but communication comes first. So what I noticed is a long time ago, learning a language was mainly about learning grammar. Students would go to class and spend the whole time practicing grammar. And a lot of these students, they learned the grammar rules, but they could not talk or communicate. To me, I believe that communication is the most important thing. So, for example, I have a sentence here. Yesterday, I go to the store. There's a grammar mistake in this sentence. Go should actually be went. But if someone says this to me, yesterday I go to the store, I can understand them 100%. So even though they make a grammar mistake, I can still understand their sentence. So grammar is important. It can help you communicate better, but it's not the only part of learning a language. And I think sometimes we spend too much time focusing on grammar and forgetting that the point of a language is to communicate. You should be focused on how to become a better communicator in a language. So learn the grammar rules, yes, but there's a lot of other things you can focus on first. The next myth many people believe is that you have to speak with a native accent in order to be fluent in a language. So a lot of people are trying to sound as British as possible, or as American as possible, or as Australian as possible. But again, there are many, many types of English accents. There's like Jamaican accents, Indian accents. There's so many different types of Englishes and so many different types of accents. Accents are beautiful. I love when I talk to people and they have different accents. I think accents are a very beautiful thing. I think what is most important is not changing an accent, but to learn how to speak clearly. So there are different ways to speak in a clearer manner. So you can keep your accent, but figure out where are the areas where people might not understand you. So if someone doesn't understand you because maybe there's differences in the way you pronounce something, the most important thing is learning how to speak clearly. There are a lot of strategies you can use if you have an accent and people are having trouble understanding you. Sometimes it might be speaking slower. Sometimes it might be like enunciating words more. There are different strategies to use, but that doesn't mean you have to change your accent. You just need to learn clearer speech techniques. So again, an accent is a beautiful thing, and you do not need to change your accent to be fluent in English. The next myth is that you must study English or whatever language you're learning for many hours every day in order to learn. So this is not exactly true. What's more important is regular practice. So even if you're learning a little bit every day, short, consistent practice every day can lead to very big improvements when you're learning a language. Often, short sessions every day are better than one long, many-hour session in one day. So doing short many times is better than doing just one long session, once a week. So 15 to 30 minutes every day is great. And again, it's important to know that the way you study, how you memorize the words, how you use the words, that's actually what's more important than the amount of time you study. So the way you study is what matters the most. Find a good way to learn the language and do a little bit every day, and you will make big changes and improvement. And I'll tell you this, I've been doing this myself with my Mandarin every single day. Whenever I take the subway, I read and I practice Mandarin. And just doing that, I've noticed a huge improvement over time by being consistent and doing 15 minutes a day. So what is the next myth? Well, if you don't learn fast, it means you're bad at languages. So this is a myth, okay? People take different amounts of time to learn a language, and that's normal. I remember when I was younger and I was learning French, it took me a very long time, and I always thought, oh, maybe I'm not good at languages. But then I learned different methods, and every day I got better and better at it. So, it's a very individual journey when you learn a language. Everyone learns differently at different speeds. Even when I teach, I see some students are very quick. They advance very quickly. Other students take a lot longer, and that's okay. It does not mean they're bad at learning a language. Sometimes they just need more time and to learn in a way that works for them. So don't compare yourself to others. It's so hard not to compare yourself to others, but don't do it. There will always be somebody who is way better when it comes to learning a language and speaking English or whatever language you're learning. There's always going to be somebody much better, and there's always going to be somebody who's a lot worse. That's normal. The most important thing is focus on yourself. Focus on your learning. And most importantly, keep going. If you compare yourself too much, you might feel bad and think, oh, I'm terrible at this. And then you might not study as hard or learn as much. Be confident in yourself. You can do this. You can learn a language. It doesn't matter how slow you feel you're going. It takes time. And just try your best and keep working at it. Keep going, and you will be successful. This next myth, I feel sad it's a myth. You can learn a language while you are asleep. When I was a kid, I tried to do this. I would listen to French when I was sleeping, and I would think, maybe I'll learn this while I'm asleep. It would be so easy. Well, the truth is, you can't learn a language by listening to audio at night while you're sleeping. It does not work. Learning a language is actually a very active, an active activity. You have to put effort in order to be successful. You will not learn a language if you're just listening to something while you sleep. Unfortunately, it's a waste of time. I wish this were true, but unfortunately, you cannot learn a language this way. Now, before I say this next myth, I want to say that I do love apps like Duolingo. I think that they're very useful and that they can be very helpful when learning a language. But some people think that all they need is one app like Duolingo to learn a language successfully. And this is, to me, a very big myth. Apps, as I mentioned, can be great tools. They can keep you motivated. They often help you with repeating things again and again. You can learn a lot of great vocabulary from them. Apps can be great tools, but they're not the full solution. In order to learn a language, you have to use it, and you have to use it for a purpose. I find that when I was learning Mandarin or French, when I was actually trying to communicate real ideas with people, that's when I noticed the biggest improvements in my language. When I was using the language for a purpose, a communication purpose. Maybe it was to buy something from the shop. Maybe it was to write a letter to somebody. But to actually use a language in a meaningful context is the best way to learn. So continue to use your apps, especially if you enjoy them. Duolingo is great. But remember, it's just one tool, and there's a lot more you need to do to learn a language. So here is the last myth we are talking about today. If you can't speak fluently in 3 to 6 months, you're doing it wrong. So many people think you can learn a language in 3 months. I agree you can learn some parts of a language in 3 months, but to become a fluent speaker, I think it's unrealistic. It takes different people different amounts of time to learn a language. For many people, it can take years. That's okay. The most important thing to focus on is just that improvement. As long as you're improving, That's the most important thing. So when you see fluent in 3 months, this is usually unrealistic. You might learn something, but to be totally able to speak a language comfortably in 3 months is a very challenging thing to do. As I mentioned, fluency can take years. Okay, so we've covered a lot of these different myths. It's important to know what the myths of learning a language are, because what really matters is the method you use to learn a language, and to make sure you are an active learner, and to make sure that you're doing small, consistent practice frequently. So thank you so much for watching today. You can practice what you learned here by taking our quiz at www.ingvid.com. I also recommend checking out some of our videos that we have made on some of the topics covered today. I mentioned earlier about accents and clear speech strategies. I have a video on this, so if you want to learn more, you can check it out. So thank you so much for watching, and